This is Andrea Longton.
This is Leah Freemouth.
And this is Ebony Perkins. And we are Renegade Capital.
All views expressed in this podcast are our own. We are not financial planners, investment advisors, or tax advisors. The views that we have on this show do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of the people who sign our paychecks. So please keep that in mind and always consult a trained financial professional before you start moving your hard-earned money. Let's dive in.
As a girl growing up, what were you taught about money?
I had nothing about money. You warned me beforehand that we were going to get this conversation. I've been racking my mind trying to think about any type of financial conversation that I ever had growing up. And they were all just, don't talk about money. We don't talk about money. I remember my dad sitting down with this little bill basket where he'd put in, it was this little Longaberger wood basket, and it would sit on our kitchen table, and he'd put the bills in it, and the checkbook was in it, and on Saturday mornings he would go and write checks to pay the bills. Oh, and money is the devil. I do remember that one. That one came through loud and clear for me.
And this is the person who became a chartered financial analyst, the legit CFA. Were the boys in your family or boys around you growing up, were they taught the same thing? Do you know?
I don't think so. I mean, I don't have any memories of it at all. I remember taking econ classes in college and being like, oh my gosh, money's really important, and how we use money is really important, and I want to keep doing this. And that was my first realization of this is important. And this is something that we can't just ignore or treat as taboo, because then it's going to keep going anyway. I even remember going and getting a promissory note for tuition and getting a FAFSA loan. The person at my college saying, this is important. This is what this means. We'd be like, yeah, sign my name.
That's real. That's common, I'm sure. Leah, what about you?
We liked money in our family. So my mom emphasized with me and my sister, to go to college so we could have a career and be kind of financially independent. I wasn't necessarily sat down and showed how to budget, but we definitely had savings accounts when we were kids. My dad came from a family with just his mom and his sister. And so he got through school and got through his PhD from academic scholarships. And at the same time, Bill was very frugal, and so there was the value of saving and spending wisely, and not just kind of buying the boat on the week. I mean, we didn't have a boat or anything like that, but just saying it was kind of, I think, balanced with not having things from when he grew up. And then my mother was one of 5 kids, military family. So again, being very cost effective with canned peas and feeding us a family that size, and kind of having to move around the country. And so I think more middle class than maybe my dad grew up as, but again, the savings and using money wisely was ingrained in my mom as well. But I hadn't thought about it, but my dad bought stocks in my sister and I's name, like Disney stocks, when we were kids, and we thought that was really cool. So again, not the book lessons, but just the value of using money to do things like that was, I guess, instilled early on. I haven't really reflected on that until now. Thanks for the question.
I think I was taught about money more so from a space of, girl, you need to make sure you can hold it down. And I mean, I'm thinking about the women in my life, in particular, both my mother and both of my grandmothers. My grandmother, when she passed, she and her husband, my grandfather, were married 53 years. The other pair, they're married 60 years. And they both were very serious. They said, come here, girl, we're going to pull you aside from all the other boys. And they were like, you need to have your own bank account. You need to be able to have your own money. And this is why. And I even remember my grandmother who passed, she said, Ebony, don't rely on a man, and not from a space of you should never get married or anything like that. But she was very clear. She said, in case something happens to your husband, not like if he dies, But if something happens to him and he's sick for a little while, you need to be able to hold down the fort. You need to be able to take care of your family. And I've always like held on to that. Like, because I knew when she said it, she was serious. She looked me dead in the eye and said you need to be able to take care of your own. And so I've always thought about that. I mean, when it was time to go to college, yeah, my parents were like, yeah, we want you to get a great college education. But there was always a question of, okay, who's paying for this? Okay, how much scholarship money are they doing? And so I was always conditioned to think about money. And I think that's why I'm such a aggressive saver now, just because it comes from, if I'm being honest, it comes from a place of fear, but also security and stability.
When you said they pulled you aside from the other boys, did you see other girls your age getting same conversations?
It depends on what girls we're talking about.
Yeah.
So I grew up in South Carolina, right?
Mhm.
Columbia, South Carolina. If you have girls who look like me, and raised, I guess relatively middle class, a lot of them, their grandparents and grandmothers are telling them the exact same thing. I just had that conversation with a friend of mine. She was like, my grandmother was telling me the same thing. I know a lot of girls whose mothers are saying you need to have your own bank account. But then there are some others who may not have been as fortunate, and they're like, "Hey, your way out and your opportunity to come up is gonna be, through marriage." Which I understand as well. It's just you pick. It's your choice. It depends.
Everybody's financial situation is different.
Right. Right.
That's wild to me that you all had like very direct financial conversations, because that was just a non-starter for my community. And I am annoying with my kids about it. Like, we go to the ATM and we're talking about all kinds of different things and get into exchange rate issues and service fees. And so I have 2 girls and a boy, and it's the same conversation for all 3 of them. But just to have that strength and knowledge as a person to be able to go about your own way in life and to feel secure in your knowledge and your ability to use finance as the tool that it is to create the situation in reality that you want to see as best you can.
One thing I just thought of, pulling back off of what Leah said and how her dad bought her some stock in Disney. And I had the opportunity, I was so psyched, to go to a Disney annual shareholders meeting, like right before COVID started in 2019. And so like that's an opportunity for them to connect with their stockholders, share, upcoming things that they have going on at the company. You can vote on various things, but they also like share a lot of their upcoming movies. But I was so surprised when I went to this meeting. There were families, like there were literal like shareholders, and they brought their kids with them to the annual meeting. And I mean, like kids, I'm saying like maybe 8, 7 years old. And I was like, this is awesome. And even to the point now, my brother and I, we've invested in Berkshire Hathaway. And we kind of want that to be like a sibling trip where we get to go to their annual meeting. But I think there are a lot of things that people are learning at much younger ages, and it affects, the life you live. Although Andrea, you totally made up for it with your CFA and everything else. It's important.
My family thinks I've lost my damn mind, but it's totally cool. It's fine.
This is Leah Freemal.
This is Ebony Perkins, and we are Renegade Capital. Today, we are talking about the power women have as both investors and economic engines.
Renegade Capital Podcast is proud to be sponsored by U.S. Bancorp Impact Finance, a subsidiary of U.S. Bank, which is an industry leader in providing financial solutions that help create positive impact for communities and the environment. For 35 years, its tax credit investments and syndications, lending, and other financial solutions have helped create affordable housing, spur economic activity in underserved communities, restore historic buildings, develop renewable sources of energy, and strengthen community development financial institutions, or CDFIs, nationwide. Learn more at usbank.com/impactfinance.
Today, we're joined by our friends at Calvert Impact, a global nonprofit investment firm that helps all types of investors invest in solutions that people and our planet need. They have a 25 plus year track record of providing positive social and environmental impact and financial returns without compromising either, really. And one thing that I'm super psyched about and impressed of is that they've channeled over $2 billion in impact investments all throughout the world. Beth Bafford is Vice President of Syndications and Strategy, and she leads Calvert Impact Capital's strategy and new business development efforts to build financial products and services for the benefits of communities both in the U.S. and around the world. Anna Mabrey is Director on the Investor Relations team at Calvert Impact. Anna's goal is to collaborate with institutional investors and financial advisors using their infamous community investment note across all asset classes, with a strict goal of building their impact investing space and making a more sustainable and equitable world. Thanks for joining us today. By way of introduction, tell us a bit about yourself, your work at Calvert, and particularly, how did you become a woman that invests in other women?
Thank you guys so much. It's so much fun to be with you. We're huge fans of the podcast. So this is Beth. I'll identify myself first. My story is kind of a funny one. So my mom was a stockbroker in the 80s, one of the kind of rare female stockbrokers after my parents were divorced, and she needed a new career. And so growing up, instead of playing with dolls, we played stocks, and we had my sister and our kind of best friend would get together almost every week, and we would sit down and we would write out our clients' names and their families. We would write out the kind of hot stocks that week, and we would pretend call clients and sell them various stocks. Our favorite was Qualcomm in the 80s. And we would kind of sell stocks, and we would track, and we would take my mom's little pink slips and all the things from her office, and we would play stocks. And so that was kind of how we grew up, was buying and selling stocks for fake clients. And what my mom says, I don't remember what my mom says when I was little, is that I used to say that I wanted to be a stockbroker for the homeless. And she was, at the time, she would laugh and say, that's funny. They don't have much in the way of investable assets, but, it's a really good ambition. And it's funny that after a kind of winding career out of college, I ended up in this space and ended up at Calvert working on the intersection of financial services and access and support for underinvested communities in the U.S. and around the world.
I have a new game for our family now, so I don't know about you guys.
That's funny. I did not know that story. So this is Anna Mabrey. I always wanted to be an archaeologist and did that, went to school for that and did that for 10 years and then became a stockbroker. I started that in my 30s, and I came to financial literacy and sort of the time value of money and all of the lessons that I didn't really know until I was 30s, and then learned how I was behind. And after being a stockbroker with institutional clients, I was a financial advisor for a few years, and I liked a lot of the aspects of both of those, like the financial side of those two jobs, but I really done volunteer work my whole life, and I just wanted to figure out how to fit that in with a humanitarian career. And having spent a lot of time in Africa and around the world, I wanted to somehow tie that to humanitarian work abroad. So anyway, I ultimately found impact investing and Calvert at the same time in DC. So the streams intersected, and here I am. I love it. I've been at Calvert almost 5 years.
Despite, your interest from a young age of playing pretend stocks, and just a natural transition from archaeology to financial advising, many women are really afraid to jump into investing or starting their own businesses, despite the fact that a lot of research shows that women can be stronger investors and business owners than men. Why do you think women fear this space so much?
Well, opposite from Beth's experience, I think most women hear really negative messages that we're not good with money, or that we're too emotional, or we don't make good decisions because we spend too much, or, whatever the different narratives are. I think also a lot of financial literacy knowledge is passed down from man to man, whether that their peers or in families, things like that. So I don't know. I feel and maybe this is also the part of the country you're in. I grew up in the South. I feel like that was also a little bit of a gendered thing. I think maybe women feel intimidated, or they're not good enough, or, hesitant to make decisions. And I actually was talking to an entrepreneur last week who said that a woman will not hesitate to write $1,000 check for donation, but ask her to put that same $1,000 as an investment. And she's like, oh, no, I don't know how to do that. I keep hearing it even in 2023. So,
yeah. And I think I just remember this from one of either Sheryl Sandberg's either talks or books about just the data and research around fear of risk. And that women tend to be more risk averse in kind of all aspects of their life. And I think things like investing, things like starting a business are inherently risky. And I think, part of that is likely because of just the enormity of the impact when we make a wrong decision, because of, our who depends on us, right? It's not just decisions about us, it's about our families, it's about our communities. And so, when you are wanting to, even if you're wanting to take a leap, I think the fear of taking that leap is tough, if you know that there's a chance that you might not succeed, and in doing so, not just impacting yourselves but impacting others around you. And I think that's tough. It's a tough decision for people to make, and I think it's especially tough for women who don't have kind of a safety net behind them, right? I think that's one of the incredible privileges I had growing up, that many don't, is that when I wanted to take a risk, I knew my mom and my dad and my family were behind me, and I knew that if I failed, they would help pick me up. And when people don't have that safety net, it makes those risks even harder to take. And I think that's where, a lot of the efforts around trying to provide friends and family type capital, really flexible angel investments, right? All the some of the communities that are popping up around that enable people to take those risks more fully than they could otherwise. But there's certainly not enough of it.
I had not heard the donation versus investment. That doesn't surprise me, but it kind of had me thinking about just the stigma of a woman wanting, like, it's okay for us to give money away, but to us to use money to make money, to kind of like that, I think has a negative connotation to it when you apply it to women, different than men are supposed to take risk and want to make money. That's kind of where my head went hearing that. And I was like, okay, yeah, the risk part I can understand, but then I also think we're not supposed to want to make money. We're supposed to want to, do certain more of the nurturing and social things. And just, I hadn't thought about it like that before. It's just interesting to kind of, yep, that's a layer too of my personality. Like, it's been ingrained in some form or fashion.
I think you hit the nail on the head, or it made me think about something. So, like, with us wanting to be, or being taught as women to be more nurturing, should we even focus on, and this is a question for Beth and Anna, should we even focus on investing and building business? Should that be a priority? Or should we stay in that lane of what some may say comes naturally to us?
I mean, I would say absolutely. I mean, I think the part of the reason there is such a large gender wealth gap in this country and certainly around the world is because of things like lack of access to financial services, lack of access to credit, lack of ability to start businesses, or lack of kind of support system to start businesses. And we don't, empire build, right? Like a lot of men do. That has caused, like, that snowballed over generations, has been a driver of the wealth gap, and has implications across our entire society in terms of who holds money, who holds power, and who makes decisions. And at the last couple of years have taught us anything, it's that who makes decisions and who hold power are extremely important, for things all the way as personal as like our bodily autonomy. And so I think it's extremely important to create an ecosystem in which women do feel comfortable, and confident enough to go out, make money, create businesses, earn their keep, to try to fight those imbalances.
So where do we go from here? How do we build, that level of comfort and that level of confidence in women, in order to become investors or to start their own businesses?
Well, I don't come from an entrepreneurial background, so I can't say every woman should start a business. But I do believe in financial literacy. And having been a financial advisor, I was actually working with a lot of military clients and couples, which is sort of the opposite dynamic, because a lot of men are the military member and women are the spouses. And so, because the men have to plug and play as soon as they get to a new assignment, the women often like run the household, whether that's children, finances, whatever, regardless of the gender dynamics and regardless of like a hetero couple or whatever. Both people in a partnership of any sort should really kind of understand the moving parts of their situation. And one person might be really into it and into the spreadsheets and learning how to invest and, getting increasingly more sophisticated in asset classes. And it doesn't mean the other person has to do that. Sometimes people, one is a spender and one is a saver. Like you can be complementary, just having two eyes on the situation. And it doesn't even have to be like, empire building and wealth building, although that's really great. But just having like two different opinions. And also if something happens to somebody, you don't want to have to make serious financial decisions during an emotional time. So it's really helpful if someone else knows where these things are or knows how this works or who to contact, that kind of thing. So I'm really passionate about this. And there's a ton of resources, but maybe we're going to get to that later. But there's lots of ways for women to build confidence, whether it's a membership group, a platform, books, podcasts. There's lots of ways.
Well, no, I was going to say maybe list some of the resources that you're thinking of, because what we can do in the show notes is also link to them. So go ahead and throw them out there by name, and then we can make sure they're easy to find for the audience members or what we put out on social media.
Yeah, so I recently participated in Invest for Better, which is a small, you probably interviewed Janine Furpo before, but it's on the Giving Circle model, but it's financial literacy. It's a small group of women, like usually 10 to 20, and you're learning the basics from like cash to, different asset classes. And you get increasingly more sophisticated if you're into that, angel investing or what have you. So Invest for Better and the book that goes with it, Activate Your Money, is awesome. Elvest is a really great platform. And that's everything from newsletters and a website to asset management. Alexa Von Tobel has a cool book called Financially Forward, and like using modern digital tools to do these different aspects, everything from budgeting to investing. Those are some that I like.
Is there anything that we can do for like younger women? Let's say, we don't have Beth's mom who plays the game with us, right? I'm just thinking of like preventing the fear from even evolving or being created.
Yeah, it's a system-wide problem that we don't have financial education and financial literacy baked into every high school curriculum, right? I mean, that is where it should start. And so absent that, I think it is, incumbent on all of us to ensure that that's a part of our kids' education, whether they're boys or girls, our nieces, our nephews, our friends, talking to schools about it, having, guest lectures, and really looking for opportunities to expose kids to, understand money. I mean, we started our oldest on lemonade stands to start to understand the basics of revenue and expenses and profit, and just introducing it really young, and understanding that this is something that's, a part of life. It's not scary. And that it's really empowering. Like Anna said, when you know how to manage your budget, when you know and understand how to manage your personal finances, your investments, it's empowering, and everybody should have those tools in their toolkit.
Let's dig deeper about Calvert. Um, and one thing that I'm really impressed by with Calvert Impact is that you pretty much bet on women, and you have been extremely successful um, in betting on women and their power, as you describe it, as investors and as economic engines. Whether that's as business owners, as innovators, fund managers, whatever it may be. Why did you choose to place this bet, and why has it been so successful?
We did it initially in early 2012, really because we all thought it was the right thing to do. So we had been investing in kind of underrepresented, resource communities since our founding, but really saw an opportunity to take a more intentional with that now called gender lens on our investment portfolio. And so we created a subset of our portfolio. We created a campaign called Women Investing in Women. And we kind of set out with this thesis of women are good bets, right? They're good investments. Women in leadership, women on boards, women really understanding the full value that women bring to a business and to a supply chain and to a value chain overall. And so we started testing the thesis and investments. And then in 2018, we said, okay, well, there's a lot of public markets research around the benefits, the economic benefits of investing in women, but there's not a lot in the private markets. So let's study our own work and let's see what we find, right? Let's look at the investments that we've made explicitly with a gender lens and the investments that we haven't. Look across our whole global portfolio and look at percentage of women in leadership positions and investments in organizations that had women on boards, and see if we can do a statistical analysis and understand whether women in leadership or on boards is a driver of financial performance. No surprise to anybody on this podcast, but the results were very clear. There was a significantly higher return on sales, significantly higher return on assets, and significantly higher return on equity across our portfolio analysis. And so it was clear in the data. It was kind of a gut from the beginning, and then we have now evidence to back it up. And so after that effort, we then started looking and gathering gender disaggregated data across our whole global portfolio, and we look and measure impact on women for every investment we make.
Do you have a story that comes to the top of your mind of benefits of investing in women and just how powerful it can be?
One of the sectors we really dug in deeply when we first started this was access to clean energy in sub-Saharan Africa and Latin America. And the thesis was that we typically invest in a fund manager. That manager is making loans or investments into companies that are providing off-grid solar for people's homes. And the thesis was that whole chain, everything from the salespeople providing, selling solar home systems, to the businesses that are running it, to the fund manager, that whole chain would be stronger if they understood and measured the gender impact of their work. And it was. I mean, you can think about going door to door to people's homes and selling solar home systems in sub-Saharan Africa. People were more willing to buy a system from a woman because the person that was typically home during the day to receive the sales call was a woman. And so they had greater trust in the salespeople. Once that really clicked, right, you could see that people started to understand the benefit of having women throughout the entire value chain. And we, over time, we're able to talk to our borrowers, our partners, and really see and start to measure that impact. And that's created kind of ripple effects across the industry.
So I did African archaeology for years. And so I lived off the grid doing that kind of work and saw sort of the gender dynamics. So Sun Funder is one of our borrowers, and they're now Marova Sun Funder. They are an international impact partner that we first invested in 2019. As part of our GLI practice, as Beth said. We helped them scale from a crowdfunding platform to an institutional impact investor. So Sun Funder was really a pioneer in offering debt financing for companies serving household consumers that were off the grid. So sometimes that was access to the hardware. Sometimes that was pay-as-you-go usage. I saw that a lot in Africa with like cell phones, and that was really cutting edge though, like 15 years ago. So when we invest in clean, renewable energy in emerging markets, we see the outsized impact on women and girls. As Beth was saying about like women or girls doing homework, women can pursue other employment activities. The girls is the huge one because not only are they getting water and wood, which is a full-time job, as I saw living in Sudan, but they get married younger. If there's no other revenue source, sometimes the girls are currency, so they stay in school longer if they have light, there's lots and lots of studies about how this has an outsized impact. So it's really cool to be talking about kind of the value chain too, though, that the women that are buying from women. And it's also interesting, another layer in that we capture, a lot of times the men maybe have the bank accounts or they're the head of the household or for whatever reason, their names are on the purchase orders or whatever. There's different ways that it may look like skewed male, but like digging into the deeper layer of how the women are involved and make the decisions and get and benefit from this is a super interesting aspect of our gender lens strategy. So I love that example, just clean energy and reliable energy. And the other example, I don't know if we have time, but I was going to mention just a local or a US. So Grameen America is pretty awesome. They are an example of our US based impact partner focused on female led small businesses. And I think we made our first loan to them in 2012. They support female entrepreneurs in low income areas. They're really focused in the Northeast and Midwest, but also North Carolina and Texas. And $5,000 is the average loan that they make, but they don't just offer capital streams. They offer financial literacy education, peer mentoring and networks, just lots of kind of technical assistance above and beyond the money. And actually, I just learned recently that Jennifer Lopez joined them as an ambassador last year, and an initiative to reach 600,000 more Latina entrepreneurs. They have a really accessible website. People can learn more by looking up Grameen America, but they're a good example of our domestic gender lens investing.
So I am part of a loan fund now that focuses on Black, Brown, and women-owned businesses, and came from a larger CDFI that I would say had more of a traditional risk appetite for the lending, real estate, and small business. And so Bridging Virginia is character-based. You know, we pull credit, but it's more of an information, and we pull it later, probably when we're going to approve it. You know, it's kind of that. We're not leaning into traditional risk criteria. We're trying to actually move away from that. And you all being pioneers back in like 2012. So how did you underwrite these investments early on from maybe a less traditional standpoint? And that wasn't an overnight kind of switch. Were there small, like incremental steps you had to take to get your board and investors and even underwriting these fund managers on the outside of the US? Like there's some comfort level that had to be built up towards, I'm guessing. Could you talk a little bit about that? Because some of the things you're describing now and what you do now is so innovative and on the front edge of where we need to go with access to capital and all the things that we're trying to work towards. So walk us through that path a little bit, if you don't mind.
We have a portfolio strategy that we call build, grow, and scale. And really it allows us to understand that our role in the market is to work with a financial intermediary, a fund, a manager. Sometimes we meet them when they're what we call the build stage, right? Where they are testing a new product, testing new markets, a new structure. When we kind of first start to work with folks in the build stage, we underwrite with the hope and an expectation that they're going to move to the grow stage and then eventually move to the scale stage. But our approach and our underwriting and our investment sizes, right, are different based on those different stages. But that strategy allowed us to say, you know, we're going to make room to make sure that we are doing some of these smaller transactions. We're all doing more of this kind of high touch support, really digging in, understanding the market, the potential, the managers, the people, so that we are prioritizing that as a part of our portfolio. And we use that as a lens through which we look at our portfolio. Like we have sectors, we have geographies, and then we have kind of what are they build, grow, or scale. And so that really gave us the kind of space to make sure we were prioritizing that, and allowed us to ensure that we were staying on the kind of leading edge of the industry, and not just doing the relatively easier, more straightforward transactions that meet a typical credit box.
Are you able to push back on the institutional investors too? And is there willingness to learn from their standpoint on, the way that you are being innovative and kind of working with and not, to like, can actually those portfolios perform and do pretty well, with the TA and the other things? So is there a channel back to the other funders that they're learning and growing in their approaches?
Absolutely. I mean, I think that's where that is essentially how we see our role in the market. We are the translators.
Okay, that's awesome.
We are translators between the work that's happening on the ground that we all love, and the institutional capital markets. And it's our goal to try to, and Anna does this on the investor side. I've done it more on the borrower side, but really try to put things in their boxes to communicate in a way that they understand. Because as one of our board members always says, the capital markets are where innovation goes to die, which is very, very true, right? They hate new things. And so, our job is to really say, here is what we're doing in the small business space. Here are small business loans originated by CDFIs. But look, they perform better or kind of at or better the small business loans that are originated by Funding Circle or by Lending Club or the multiple commercial loan syndication or securitizations that are in the market today. And here's the data to show you that that's true, right? And we know that you need to see the data in this form. We know you need to see it in certain cuts. We know you need to see it over time. And so that you can, you institutional investor can do the side by side and say, here's what we're used to. Here's what these loans look like. And like, oh, wait, they happen to be originated by nonprofit lenders.
Yeah.
But this is, here's how you need to see the information. And that's really kind of when we talk about, we talk a lot about kind of building the plumbing of the financial system to reach these markets, right? That's part of the plumbing. Those are the pipes that are disconnected today that need to be connected for capital to flow.
Renegade Capital Podcast is proud to be sponsored by Self-Help Credit Union and Self-Help Federal Credit Union, which believe in the power of finance to transform lives and communities. Are you an impact investor looking to make a difference? Look no further than Self-Help, where your deposits can create positive change. Don't just invest for profit, invest for impact. Visit selfhelp.org/invest-for-impact today and start depositing into a money market or term certificate with Self-Help Credit Union, where your money can change lives. Self-Help Credit Union, ownership and economic opportunity for all.
So I'm piggybacking off of that whole statement of, capital markets is where innovation goes to die. But at the same time, we can't ignore that capital markets are huge, right? Our whole financial system is based off of it. What changes need to happen in order to improve the system for women, as a whole? And I know that's a loaded question. What would you say if you could take a stab at that?
Well, yeah, that is a huge question. I would say we need more mentors and role models. We need to change workplace culture. And I say that coming from the financial advising and the investment bank side, but Calvert's kind of a unicorn. But I think most financial services environments are not very female friendly or even just like early career friendly. It's a lot of places are kind of like pay your dues or it's like you're getting hazed to like assimilate, I think we need to change marketing for like financial services and products, make pay transparent. I don't know, kind of all the things, change loan underwriting. I like the whole system really.
I was really gutted when Roe was overturned, and with some of the decisions that have been made over the last few years. We are very fortunate to work in a workplace. We're 70% women. We're 80% of our management team. We are a very respectful environment, and it was like this stark reminder that women are still kind of categorically undervalued in our economy and our society. And I think that has to change, right? That the understanding of worth and the role that we play in our economic system, in our social system, really has to change for our financial system to change. Because you still see it. There's enormous access to credit gaps for women-owned businesses. I think the highest unbanked population in the U.S. are single mothers, and it is a financial system set up that it's relationship based and it is structured to value men over women. And I think it's until that changes, it's really hard to shift a system to think otherwise. And so, these systems are all interconnected, and I think really understanding and driving the just pure worth is going to be really critical, and recognizing it and as an issue is going to be critical if we're going to see widespread kind of systemic change.
Just to piggyback on that, the World Economic Forum's Global Gender Gap Report said female talent in finance still remains one of the most untapped business resources. And women make up more than half of the entry-level finance workforce in the US, which I was surprised at that, but only 6% of senior positions, which I might even think was high. And another interesting statistic globally is that 65% of women have an account with a financial institution compared to 72% of men.
The study that always floors me is that 98.6% of all financial professionals, or of all people who control money, identify as both white and male. And that is just so overwhelming to think about, and the impacts that has on our financial system.
Yeah, I mean, that's why at Calvert, we intentionally hire diverse teams and diverse candidates, because we're trying to change the system at that level too. And just show that it's beneficial to business and the world and the environment. So I really love that. Yeah, it's not just about race, but professional background and nationalities and ages and things like that. So
I'm curious, that's one area that I have seen people give, traditional financiers give some side eye to. Of, is that really a good business model? Is that, are you risking your money unnecessarily? Which I always have to kind of roll my eyes and shake my head and keep going. But have you all encountered resistance to having a diverse fund manager approach?
I have not.
Not for people underwriting us. I mean, obviously there's a lot going on in the diverse manager space with the Fearless Fund lawsuit and everything going on around that, which is the amount of fear it has created in the space is really letting them win, and which is just going to be continue to set us back, and so like most things, we have to go above and beyond to make the argument that it's good business or that it's a good investment. And it's not just about gender, it's about financial performance, or it's not just about race, it's about, underrepresented sectors and industries. And I think we can't operate from a place of fear when trying to shift the system, because if we do, we will never change.
For those who may not be aware, the Fearless Fund is a venture capital fund that intentionally invests in businesses led by women of color. Since their founding in 2019, they have invested nearly $27 million in 40 businesses and awarded another $3.7 million in grants. According to the Associated Press, the Fearless Fund has been sued by the same person who filed the affirmative action cases that went before the Supreme Court. This lawsuit targets the fund's grant program, which awards $20,000 grants to Black women who run businesses. They're claiming that this particular program violates a section of the Civil Rights Act of 1866. As of the release of this episode, the 11th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals has ruled to temporarily block the Fearless Fund from running its grants programs. We've provided additional links about the Fearless Fund and how you can support them in the show notes. I know that our audience, they like to act. So now that they have all this great information, and they want to do something with it, whether it's create their own portfolio that supports women, or maybe it's even investing in Calvert, because as Anna mentioned, Calvert is a unicorn. What do they do? Where do they start? How do they create this change that they want to see?
I think that's a call to action is a great segue. Fairlawn at RBC had a good quote and said that, we can't just educate ourselves on these problems and kind of get bogged down on that. Thought is not action, is what she said. And so I always try to work that into the end of, some kind of educational, conversation. And that really starts with knowing who benefits from your money, who benefits from your business. Where do you bank? Mighty Deposits is a great resource to go and look at where you want, like looking at a CDFI that supports the geography or the communities that you want to. Mighty Deposits, cash, banking institutions, CDFIs, that's a great place to start because everyone has a bank account. Mutual funds, Elvest is a great place to learn about that. Elevate is a great mutual fund that invests in large companies that advance gender diversity and equity. JSTC is an ETF that Adesina puts out, and they have tons of resources. They're amazing. In fixed income, look at the use of proceeds. I mean, I wouldn't dig too deep on some of these corporate bonds, but there's lots of really awesome green and social bonds that are doing good and doing well. And then, looking at venture, there's so many ways to just kind of learn about who benefits from your money. And there's lots of books that we already mentioned, and podcasts and things like this one.
Yeah, and I would say one if a pioneer in this space is Suzanne Beagle, who I'm sure you all have heard of or learned from. But she was recently diagnosed with cancer, and what she wants to do, what she's doing with kind of her last stages of life, is creating a portfolio that she wants people to replicate of gender lens investments and investments that are really advancing women in our economy. I'm forgetting the name of the fund, but she has created a fund. She's putting products in it, and she really wants her legacy to be sharing that the portfolio, the options, the tactical action-based solutions, so that many more people can get involved in this work. And she's been just a stalwart kind of champion of this space for many years globally. I'll make sure we all have the link to that. But it's a great portfolio that she's curated for all the rest of us.
Next Wave Impact Fund.
Thank you.
Given that we have 5 women here in professional finance industry, capital access, one of the things that I'm thinking about and reflecting on is like, how do I don't talk about this stuff with my friends, like my social group. And so like, how can we be ones that are more aware of this world kind of normalize talking about money and investments around the fire pit or, at the poolside while our kids are playing? And because I know it's kind of taboo to say, well, how much money do you make? Where do you invest it? But like, I feel like the best advocate for my female neighbor would be me if there was some comfort level, but I don't know how to open those doors. It's like, how can we do more of that? Because I feel like those are the seeds that I'm not intentionally planting, but maybe I should be.
I love this question. I literally talk about this every day. I love it so much because I came to this so late in life, and I'm just like, did you know? Like, did you know that you can make 5% on, I don't know if I can call out names here, but this money market that's doing all kinds of venture investment in biodigesters, for example, or I don't want to call it an institution, but like talking about like, did you know that your cash can make 5%? I mean, at the big banks, you're making 0.001 or something. I was grandfathered into like such a low rate that didn't even exist anymore because I opened it in college. So saying that, like, did you know, like if you're buying a house in a year or 2 or 3 years, like this is a safe FDIC insured place. And, you don't have to just switch your whole bank. Like open your emergency fund, open your Christmas, savings, your rainy day fund, whatever it is, and earn this great return. And go to Bankrate and look at all these different, and then go to Mighty Deposits and see what these organizations do with their money. I mean, even things like, do you have a will? Do you know how to get a will? Like I just got a will done. And so talking to a friend about that and like how important that is, because things happen all the time. And, as you get older, you have more lived experience with things happening in your family unexpectedly. And especially finances,
like opening like a living trust relative
yeah.
to wood per, like things like that. We're starting to have those conversations,
Yeah, talking about 529s, talking about kids, whatever it is that you're interested in and working on, the other people are interested in that too. Finding out things like you can like open one 529 and transfer it to multiple beneficiaries, so you don't have to open one for every child, and it doesn't have to go to your biological child. You can use it. You can change it into your name. There's like so much interesting information, and I talk about that over wine. It doesn't have to be like, a lecture, it's like, look at what I just learned. And so that's how I normally, it's just you're chit-chatting,
Yeah, and I think language is so important, right? I mean, I think of it like the legal profession, right? The financial profession has created this lingo to make it, unaccessible to most people. None of this is rocket science, right? It is very logical, very simple kind of concepts, but because it's all wrapped in language that most people don't grow up with, it is seemed to be inaccessible. And so I found that with my friends, I don't have a lot of other friends that are in finance, and I found that it might be, if something comes up that we're talking about. This happened when the Silicon Valley Bank crisis. I was having dinner with girlfriends like that night, right? And they were like, what's going on? What happened? And I, just breaking it down in terms of this is how the bank was making investments. This was the challenge. This was the issue. And when you actually just say it in plain language, right? It's easy to understand, and everybody's like, oh, I get that. Like, that's not too complicated for me to understand. And so I think that's what I've found is that people kind of, as soon as you start to talk about investments or finance, people kind of throw up this wall. And it really takes kind of accessible language just to say, this is something that you have full brain capacity to understand, right? These are brilliant women. It's just, putting it in plain English.
So, one last question that we ask all of our guests, because this is Renegade Capital. How do you define a renegade?
I would define a renegade as someone who doesn't use a conventional roadmap.
Yeah, I was going to say something similar. Someone who bucks the trend, who doesn't settle for status quo, and who asks question after question after question, to find something that makes sense, not just what is kind of considered normal or accepted. All of you are renegades.
I love it. Thank you all for coming. And I know that this is an audio form of communication and our people can't see it. But I just want to point out that Beth has on a shirt that says, "Let women run shit." And that is the theme for today's episode. So thanks for living those values, even in the shirt that you wear.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Renegade Capital. If you like what you heard, you can listen to previous episodes on your favorite podcast platform, and be sure to follow us on social media at Renegade Capital, or check out our website, www.renegadecapitalpodcast.com, to never miss a new release. Our show is hosted by Andrea Longton, Ebony Perkins, and Leah Freemount, publicized by Elizabeth Gilbert Ketzel of Narrator Studios, and produced by yours truly, Chance Lee.